The 2030 countdown. Every empire has its breaking point. Every financial system has its expiration date. And every global reserve currency in history has followed the same cycle. 75 to 100 years of dominance, then decline, then replacement. Portugal's real, Spain's silver dollar, the Dutch guilder, the British pound. One by one, each rose to power, shaped the world, and eventually gave way. The United States dollar is no exception. The dollar claimed its crown in 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, when world leaders gathered to rebuild after war. Anchored to gold, the dollar became the backbone of international trade. For decades, it reigned unchallenged. But in 1971, the gold link was cut, and the dollar transformed into a fiat system backed only by trust, oil deals, and military power. That bought it more time. Yet history's rhythm has never been broken. The clock ticks, the cycle moves forward, and the century-long window is closing. By 2030, the dollar's era will end, right on schedule. But here's the question few are willing to ask. What if the reset isn't some distant event waiting for us on the horizon? What if it's already happening quietly right now? Not a sudden switch, but a gradual countdown. A series of deliberate steps taken by central banks, institutions, and innovators, building the new system piece by piece, even as the old one crumbles in plain sight. All around us, signs of this shift are everywhere. Central banks testing digital currencies, global standards changing the way money moves, assets being tokenized, nations moving away from dollar dependence, institutions preparing to plug into a new infrastructure that will look nothing like the 20th century financial system. Each piece alone might seem small, but together they form a pattern that is impossible to ignore. A pattern pointing directly to 2030 as the year the reset fully reveals itself. This is not about speculation. It is not about hype. It is about 10 undeniable signs that the transformation has already begun. From ISO 2022 to central bank digital currencies, from Ripple's corridors to the tokenization of trillions in assets, from BRICS nations dropping the dollar to central banks buying gold, the evidence is overwhelming. The new rails are being laid. The countdown is underway. And at the heart of this shift sits one asset designed for this moment: XRP. Not a meme coin, not a speculative bubble, but a digital bridge built for interoperability, compliance, and speed. It is the tool engineered to solve the problem no nation's currency can solve: how to connect them all. The 2030 reset is not a fantasy. It is not a wild conspiracy. It is the natural conclusion of history's rhythm, a cycle as old as money itself. What makes this time different is that the replacement will not be a single empire's fiat. It will be digital, decentralized, and global. And XRP is already in position to serve as its keystone. Over the next 5 chapters, we will count down the 10 signs proving that the reset is already in motion. Each sign brings us closer to the inevitable conclusion. The old system is fading, the new one is emerging, and 2030 is the convergence point. This is the 2030 countdown. 10 signs the reset is already underway. Part 1. Signs. 10 and number 9. The new rails are here. Every great transition begins quietly. Before the world notices the shift, the infrastructure is already in place. Roads are paved before cars dominate. Fiber optic cables are buried before the internet explodes. And in finance, new rails are laid long before the public understands their purpose. Sign number 10 is ISO 2022. At first glance, it sounds boring, just another technical standard. But in truth, ISO 2022 is one of the most important upgrades in the history of money. It is a universal messaging language for payments, a way for banks, institutions, and governments across the world to communicate seamlessly. For decades, finance has relied on outdated systems like SWIFT, where messages were inconsistent, limited, and fragmented. With ISO 2022, every transaction carries richer data, faster settlement potential, and compatibility across borders. The rollout began quietly in 2022 and accelerated in 2023-2025. By 2030, nearly every financial institution on Earth will be ISO 2022 compliant. That means trillions of dollars in daily payments, from remittances to securities trades, will move on a standardized, interoperable language. And here's where it gets interesting. XRP is one of the few digital assets natively aligned with ISO 2022. While other cryptocurrencies chase speculation, XRP was designed from the ground up to work within these rails. It is not an outsider trying to force its way in. It is the bridge asset already built for the new system. Sign number 9 is CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. For years, central banks dismissed digital money as a fad. Now they are racing to create their own. Over 130 countries representing more than 95% of global GDP are exploring, testing, or launching CBDCs. China has already rolled out the digital yuan to millions. The European Central Bank is testing the digital euro. The US Federal Reserve is studying a digital dollar. Africa, Latin America, and Asia are filled with pilot programs. CBDCs are not about replacing money with crypto. They are about upgrading national currencies into programmable, trackable digital forms. Governments want control, transparency, and efficiency. But while each CBDC may work within its own borders, they face a massive challenge: interoperability. How does a digital yuan talk to a digital euro? How does a digital dollar settle with a digital peso? This is where XRP comes in. CBDCs are closed systems by design. They are sovereign tools, not global ones. But XRP was created to be the neutral bridge, the settlement layer between different currencies. Ripple has already been in conversations and partnerships with central banks and institutions around the world. Their CBDC platform, announced in the mid-2020s, uses the same underlying XRPL technology, positioning XRP as the liquidity solution for cross-border CBDC settlement. Think about the timing. ISO 2022 creates the shared language. CBDCs create the new digital money, but neither can function globally without a bridge. XRP sits perfectly in that role. By themselves, ISO 2022 and CBDCs might seem like technical upgrades, but together, they are the foundation of a new financial architecture. The rails are being laid, the trains are being tested, and soon the entire world will be moving on this new system. That is why these are the first 2 signs in our countdown. Because before the public hears the word reset, the infrastructure must already be in place, and it is. Part 2. Signs number 8 and number 7, tokenization and Ripple's corridors. If ISO 2022 and CBDCs are the rails of the new system, then tokenization is the cargo. Because a payment system without things to move is useless. The future of money isn't just about currency. It's about every form of value being digitized, secured, and made instantly transferable. Sign number 8 is tokenization. For years, the idea sounded futuristic. Real estate, stocks, commodities, even carbon credits existing as tokens on digital ledgers. But today, tokenization is no longer theory. It is happening. In 2023, major banks began testing tokenized bonds. JP Morgan, Citi, and HSBC all launched pilots where debt instruments were issued and settled on blockchain. In Europe, regulators approved the first tokenized funds. In Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong ran live experiments where tokenized assets were traded across borders in real time. The benefits are clear. Tokenized assets can be divided into fractional shares, making them accessible to more people. They can settle instantly, eliminating counterparty risk. They can carry data, enabling smart contracts for compliance, dividends, and ownership records. And they can move across borders with the same ease as sending an email. By 2030, analysts project that tens of trillions of dollars in assets will be tokenized. That includes real estate markets, corporate debt, stocks, art, intellectual property, and commodities. The scale is enormous, and every one of those assets will need liquidity, interoperability, and instant settlement. Enter XRP. Ripple has already positioned the XRPL as a platform for tokenization. Central banks can issue CBDCs on private XRPL ledgers. Stablecoins and other assets can be launched and traded with the same speed and efficiency as XRP itself. Tokenization does not compete with XRP. It multiplies the demand for what XRP provides: seamless movement of value across borders and platforms. Sign number 7 is Ripple's corridors. While other crypto projects were chasing hype, Ripple was building infrastructure in the shadows. RippleNet, powered by XRP's on-demand liquidity, ODL, established real-world corridors for payments between countries. From Asia to Europe, Africa to Latin America, these corridors bypassed legacy systems like SWIFT, proving that value could move instantly and cheaply across borders. In countries like Mexico and the Philippines, ODL was already moving hundreds of millions of dollars in remittances by the mid-2020s. Ripple partnered with financial institutions in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific to expand corridors even further. Unlike most crypto companies, Ripple wasn't chasing retail adoption. It was solving a problem for banks, payment providers, and institutions. Each corridor Ripple builds is like a test track for the new system. Step by step, nation by nation, liquidity pools are forming. By 2030, these corridors could expand into a global network where XRP serves as the universal bridge between currencies, CBDCs, and tokenized assets. Together, tokenization and Ripple's corridors are not just upgrades. They are proof that the new system is already being built. Assets are going digital, payments are going instant, and XRP is already flowing through the pipes. The world may not yet see the full picture, but these signs are undeniable. The countdown is underway and we are moving closer to the reset. Part 3, signs number 6 and number 5, de-dollarization and the gold rush. For decades, the US dollar has been more than just money. It has been the glue that held global trade together, the tool nations relied on to settle debts, purchase oil, and stabilize their economies. But in recent years, that trust has begun to fracture. Alliances are shifting, alternatives are emerging, and history's cycle is revealing itself once more. Sign number 6 is de-dollarization. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, were once seen as a loose coalition of developing economies. Today, they represent over 40% of the world's population and a growing share of global GDP. And they have a mission: reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Russia and China have already been settling energy trades in rubles and yuan. India has experimented with paying for oil in rupees. Brazil and China have built direct trade settlement systems in their local currencies. And Saudi Arabia, once the anchor of the petrodollar system, has openly discussed accepting payment for oil in non-dollar currencies. This isn't theory, it's happening in real time. The dollar's dominance in global reserves has slipped from over 70% in 2000 to barely 58% today, and the trend accelerates every year. The BRICS are even exploring the launch of a shared settlement currency, potentially tied to commodities or digital rails. For the first time in nearly a century, a serious coalition of nations is actively working to bypass the dollar. And they are not alone. Across Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, countries are signing bilateral agreements to settle trade in local money. The message is clear. The world is moving toward a multipolar system where no single currency dominates. Sign number 5 is the return to gold. Central banks are buying gold at the fastest pace since records began. In 2022 and 2023 alone, they purchased more than 1,000 tons annually, the largest accumulation in modern history. Nations like China, Turkey, and India have been quietly adding to their reserves. Even smaller economies are increasing their gold holdings, diversifying away from dollar assets. Why gold? Because it is the oldest form of trust. Unlike fiat currencies, gold cannot be printed. Unlike bonds, it carries no counterparty risk. In times of uncertainty, it is the anchor nations turn to. And today's uncertainty is about the dollar itself. Some analysts believe this gold rush is not just about safety. It is about preparation. Gold could form the backing for new settlement systems. Imagine tokenized gold reserves tied to CBDCs settling across neutral digital rails. This would combine the ancient trust of gold with the instant efficiency of blockchain. And once again, XRP would be the bridge asset connecting these systems. Taken together, de-dollarization and the gold rush send a powerful message. The world is preparing for the end of the dollar's reign. Nations are hedging their bets, reducing reliance on US assets and positioning themselves for a system where value flows across multiple currencies and commodities. And in that system, there must be a bridge. Not the dollar, not the yuan, not any single fiat currency. A neutral digital settlement layer, the kind of role XRP was designed to fill. The countdown continues, the cracks in the dollar system are widening. The replacements, local currencies, gold, and digital settlement layers, are already being prepared. And as history has always shown, once the cycle turns, it never turns back. Part 4, signs, number 4 and number 3, regulation and institutional adoption. The old financial system doesn't collapse in a single day. It unravels piece by piece until suddenly what once seemed permanent is revealed as fragile. But for the new system to rise, two things must happen. The rules must be written and the institutions must step in. Without these two steps, no financial transition can succeed. Sign number 4 is regulation clarity. For more than a decade, cryptocurrency operated in a legal gray zone. Some nations embraced it, others banned it. Most hovered in confusion. unsure whether digital assets were securities, commodities, or something else entirely. That uncertainty kept institutions on the sidelines. No bank wants to risk regulatory backlash. No government wants to gamble with instability. But that fog is lifting. In the United States, years of courtroom battles have begun to produce answers. Certain digital assets are being recognized as commodities, while others are clearly securities. Across Europe, the MyCA framework has laid out rules for how digital assets can be issued, traded, and stored. Asia, from Singapore to Japan, has been building licensing systems for exchanges and tokenized markets. Even Africa and Latin America are drafting laws to regulate digital currencies. The most critical piece? Ripple's courtroom war. After years of uncertainty, the rulings around XRP created a precedent. XRP is not a security when used as a bridge currency. That single decision changed the landscape, opening the door for banks and institutions to consider XRP without fear. Regulation, once a wall, is becoming a roadmap, and clarity, once absent, is arriving just in time for the reset. Sign number 3 is institutional adoption. For years, cryptocurrency was seen as retail-driven, fueled by speculators, traders, and hype cycles. But now the tide is turning. BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, has launched crypto products. Fidelity, Vanguard, and major banks are offering digital asset custody. Tokenized funds and ETFs are entering the mainstream. Institutions move cautiously. They do not chase memes or gamble on hype. They wait for infrastructure, regulation, and liquidity. And once those pieces are in place, they move billions and even trillions at a time. Their entry marks the difference between a niche experiment and a global system. We are seeing it unfold right now. Tokenized treasuries are being tested on-chain. Bond markets worth trillions are experimenting with blockchain settlement. Payment giants like Visa and MasterCard are integrating stablecoins into their networks. And Ripple, with its corridors and partnerships, is connecting financial institutions across continents. This is not speculation, it is adoption. It is the world's largest players positioning themselves for the digital economy. And while retail traders argue over speculation, the institutions are laying claim to the foundation of the new system. Taken together, regulation clarity and institutional adoption signal a turning point. The fog is clearing. The rules are being written. The biggest players in finance are moving in. And once they build their positions, the shift becomes irreversible. By 2030, the countdown won't be about possibility. It will be about inevitability. The reset will not be a sudden event. It will be the culmination of steps already taken, signs already visible, and choices already made. And at the center of it all, connecting the new rails, the tokenized assets, the CBDCs, and the institutions will be XRP, the bridge asset designed for this moment. Part 5, Signs, number 2 and number 1, the bridge and the convergence. Every countdown leads to a climax. Every pattern points to a conclusion. And in the story of global money, the final signs are the most undeniable of all. Sign number 2 is XRP itself. For over a decade, XRP has stood apart from the rest of crypto, not because of hype, but because of purpose. While others focused on speculation, XRP was engineered as a settlement layer, fast, efficient, and built for interoperability. It does not compete with fiat currencies. It connects them. It does not challenge central banks. It supports them. It does not need retail hype. It was designed for institutional use. That design is why Ripple focused on banks, not memes. Why it fought for regulation clarity instead of hiding offshore. Why it aligned itself with ISO 2022. Why it created corridors where real money moves every day. And why it built a framework that central banks can use to issue CBDCs. XRP is not a competitor to the system. It is the system's missing piece. A neutral digital bridge asset that can settle transactions between any two forms of value: fiat, CBDC, stablecoin, or tokenized asset. No other cryptocurrency occupies this role, and no fiat currency can, because national money will always carry national interests. Only a neutral bridge can sit at the center of the Internet of Value. Which brings us to the final sign. Sign number 1 is the convergence point, 2030. Every pattern in history leads here. The 100-year currency cycle that began in 1944 is nearing its close. The global adoption of ISO 2022 is scheduled to be complete by the end of this decade. CBDC pilots are projected to go live at scale within the same window. Tokenization is accelerating, with trillions of dollars in assets expected to move on digital ledgers by 2030. Institutions are entering. Regulations are solidifying. Nations are de-dollarizing and central banks are hoarding gold. These are not random events. They are coordinated steps in a transition, centuries in the making. By 2030, the old system will not simply collapse. It will be replaced. The rails will be digital. The assets will be tokenized. The currencies will be programmable. And the bridge tying it all together will already be in place. That bridge is XRP. When history is written, 2030 will not be remembered as a year of chaos, but as a year of convergence. The moment when the cycles aligned, the signs became undeniable, and the new system fully revealed itself. The dollar's century-long reign will have run its course, and in its place a new order will rise. One built not on a single nation's fiat, but on a digital architecture that spans the globe. We are not waiting for the reset. We are living through it. Every sign in this countdown proves it. The old order is fading. The new rails are already here. And XRP is not just part of the system. It is the system's keystone. The 2030 convergence point is not a theory. It is history's rhythm, playing out in real time. And whether you see it as coincidence, design, or destiny, the outcome is the same. A new financial system built on digital rails with XRP at its core. The countdown is now 10 signs. 10 signals that the reset is no longer a future event but a present reality. From ISO 2022 to CBDCs, from tokenization to Ripple's corridors, from BRICS de-dollarization to central banks hoarding gold, the message is clear. The old system is fading, and the new one is already here. By 2030, the convergence will be undeniable. The rails will be digital, the assets tokenized, the currencies programmable, and at the center, XRP will serve as the neutral bridge, the keystone of the Internet of Value. History's rhythm is unbreakable. Every reserve currency has had its rise and fall. Now we are living through the transition to what comes next. The countdown isn't toward chaos. It is toward connection, speed, and a new foundation for global money. The reset isn't coming, it's happening. And XRP is at the heart of it. Subscribe to LTL Productions, because the story of the Internet of Value has only just begun.